left, right.
All right, this is a super cool episode I want to share with you. We've compiled a bunch of viewer and listener questions, and we're hitting them all in this podcast. So if we missed anything, throw one in the comments. I would love to hear what you would like to hear from us. In the meantime, go ahead and subscribe and like this video or podcast because that helps us out big time. It allows us to answer more of your questions, and it allows this podcast to perpetuate. On that note, enjoy. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course it's Phil.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to episode 60 of SipTalk. Today we'll be answering your questions. Got a long list of questions. If you're just tuning in from the beginning of this live, I was running a little bit late. Stopped at Lowe's instead of Home Depot. Home Depot didn't have what I need. I've literally been rushing so much. I have, when you chew gum like so hard or so much, I don't know the exact measure it takes to get to this level, but this gum is just soupy in my mouth. It's disgusting. And I haven't had a second to take it out of my mouth. Alexa, turn the desk light on.
It's a good thing you're not walking right now.
Why is that?
Chewing gum and walking.
Yeah, no, I'd be done. I'd be done for. I'd be tripping over myself. So I put a feeler post out there this morning looking for some user questions, some viewer questions, and I figure we'll hit them. We actually got some pretty good questions. If you guys are watching live, I'll do my best to catch up with your questions live.
Let's start off with what you're drinking.
I was just going to say, because this is SipTalk, and I literally just got here. So I got a case of wine in the garage. This is Rabbit and Spaghetti from Prisoners of War. It's an Italian.
You've got a case of wine sitting in your garage?
A couple cases of wine, yeah, because when you live in the
make sure it doesn't get below freezing.
You can get the garage pretty warm. But you can get a lot of stuff in Jersey, and we're just loaded up. So I got my little wine opener here, and but it's got a little air stamp on it from Italy. Who knows? South Australia. It's probably, who knows? It says Italian services. It says South Australia. It's definitely a blend here.
I wouldn't worry about it. Just drink it, and if it tastes good, great.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have any affiliates for wine marketing. So
I don't know if this beer is available in New Jersey or New York or wherever, but it's a local brewery called Edmund's Oast. And they might ship farther out than just South Carolina. They're a pretty excellent brewery, and I was out at their brewery last night meeting with a former professor just to bullshit and catch up.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big fan of sour beers, so I got their Rainbow Sherbet Sour, and it's amazing.
Hold it. You got a can in front of you? Oh wow, it's red. All right. Well, speaking of red, a little red wine here.
But yeah, I don't know how easy it would be able to find outside of Charleston, but if anybody can get any of the sours from Edmund's Oast, I would recommend it. But this Rainbow Sherbet, my roommate normally doesn't like sour beers. I poured him a little cup of it so he could try, and he's like, wow, this is amazing.
Well, I'm not a big sour beer fan, but I'm a beer fan. I like it. So let me just start with the first question. I want to roll into them.
Let's just jump right into it.
Somebody asked about cuffing, and actually, I don't know the exact phrasing of the question, but it was from Sweet Onyx 50, and it was basically about people getting into relationships for the winter, which is basically what cuffing season is. So, she said for the winter time.
I hadn't heard the term before.
You're not familiar with cuffing? Okay, so I'll fill you in then. Cuffing is
basically the season where it starts to cool down, so like fall time, winter time, where you're not looking to get super romantic and fall head over heels in love, but really more so on the casual side. I don't think people are necessarily like just looking to do a 2.5 month, 3 month stint, but they're not looking to get attached. And whatever happens, happens. But for the most part, they're looking for, you can't in the wintertime when it's cold, you especially this year, you can't go out to bars and go meet people as with as much spontaneity as you can any other time of the year. So the idea is you find somebody to settle down with for the winter season, and you're not looking to get into it too seriously. That's
So
covered.
so that sounds to me like stopgap season.
I don't know what that is.
You never heard the stopgap?
No.
A stopgap measure?
No.
Stopgap measure is basically something to buy yourself time or delay a bigger decision.
Okay. Well, fair enough. I think we could, the two would go together there. But yeah, I'm surprised. I got a few people tell me they don't know what cuffing is. So that's cool. I'm glad we could enlighten you. So here's a little deeper question. This comes from Daisy's. Because people are, they're not going out as much anymore since they're closing the restaurants in Manhattan. It looks like it's definitely going to happen. They're talking about meeting people who are further distance away. And the question was, when you meet someone online, you hit it off, but you go to meet them in person, who travels, the man or the woman?
My vote is that it should be roughly equidistant.
Well, yeah, but if you're going to, one person's in Detroit, the other person's in Miami or something.
Oh, I thought we were talking about, like, I live on this side of town, you live on that side of town.
No, I think we're going further distance. Andreas is commenting. He says the man. Well, actually, he said the men. But
I would say whoever lives in the better location. So if one person lives in Detroit and the other lives in Miami, it doesn't matter if it's the male or the female that lives in Miami. Someone's traveling to Miami because that's a way better place to be in the winter than Detroit.
Somebody else said meet halfway, but the idea is you don't have anywhere halfway unless you're going to meet up in a motel, which if you're so the thing is about meeting somebody long distance and talking online, like somebody else asked about long distance relationships, and Liana asked about long distance relationships. And I don't think a long distance relationship is a true 100% fulfilling relationship. It can fulfill you if your needs aren't every aspect on the spectrum of a relationship, because there are sexual needs, there are emotional needs, there are different physical needs. Now, on an emotional level, a long distance relationship tends, if you're linking up with somebody of distance, you're really connecting more so on that emotional level. And if you're susceptible to connecting on an emotional level, it means your emotional needs are probably greater than the people that are abstaining from relationships and not connecting with people online.
Here's the question first is, did you meet when it wasn't long distance and then it became long distance because of circumstance, or did it start off long distance?
Okay, good question. My thinking was that they hadn't met in person. That was, I don't have the question in front of me, but it was my impression that they had not met in person. This was going to be the first meeting. But also I think nowadays, like, you should have a pretty decent connection, especially like with FaceTime and Zoom and stuff. Like you have to spend some face-to-face time.
Yeah, especially and that helps to make sure that the person's not just like
a creep.
Yeah, or not who they say they are. You're not getting catfished.
Exactly. Catfishing, I think, is really. I feel like that show. It's a TV show now. It's been for a while, but I feel like for you to be on that show now, like you have to be a real dummy.
Because at this point, it would be really hard to be able to pull off a successful catfish because the person would be just like, "Yo, let's just do a video call. I'd like to see you."
No, I have work.
Okay, cool. How about after work?
Oh, yeah, that should be fine. But sometimes I get really busy and I have bad reception in my house.
All right, I don't think this is gonna work, babe.
But that only holds up for so long, and then you're just like, nah.
Yeah, you're ducking me.
But the and again, the question from Eliana about long distance relationships. My question back to that is like, where is that going to go? If somebody lives in Detroit, the other person lives in Miami, you have to know at that time, if you're expecting it to go anywhere, that you plan to relocate for good, or the other person plans to relocate for good. That's a tough look. At Max and Lindsay. They lived in different cities for years and years and years. Ultimately, they got together and they lived together and they own a home together. But that's a tough. I don't know anybody else that sustained long-term distant relationships. I think that's a tough one.
Yeah, and I think that like it's going to fail unless you have longer term plans to be able to be living in the same city eventually. That long distance can't be the default. It has to be a temporary thing. And I think that generally you're going to want to have had the relationship start off normal and then become long distance because of something you couldn't control. You had to move for work or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I know somebody else who was doing a long distance relationship from New York to, I think, Hawaii.
Well, that's about as far as you can go.
And then moved in, I think, in California or maybe in Hawaii. So left New York, and they were together.
Talk about meeting halfway. That's
yeah, together for a few years, married, and now separating. Because certain things like in real life just aren't. It makes for a tough reality when it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
And Andreas is saying, do you consider cheating when you're in a long distance relationship?
Those parameters have to be set at the outset.
Well, or they're not, and then it just gets dicey. That's a tricky. It's definitely tricky because if you have sexual needs and you're in this long distance relationship, that's tough. I would say it's definitely different for everybody. But distance is a lot of stress in a relationship. And if you're getting serious in that distance relationship and expecting to come together, expect your timeline restarts. So you might be dating somebody for 8 months and then you come together and it's no longer distance. It's not we've been together for 8 months. It's we've been together for a week. We're starting something new because the whole dynamic changes when you're one-on-one living with someone, or even living just they're there all the time, and of course say you're dating from different cities, and then you relocate. One of you relocates, or both of you relocate to the same city, but you're not living together. You're living separately.
Okay.
That distance is like a magnetic. Now one of you is going, my guess is at least one of you is going to want to be spending a lot of time with that person. So say, if I'm dating somebody who lives in Mexico and then I move to Mexico, I'm moving to Mexico to be with that person, right? So that's the primary reason. Maybe I got a job in Mexico, but I'm moving because that person's in Mexico. Now, my main thing in Mexico is that person. So I want to be spending 98% of my free time with that person. But I've moved into that person's life, and that person has 100% of a life. I may occupy 20% of it, the time that they spend on the phone or FaceTime with me distance-wise. But now, I'm new to the city. I want to spend all my time with that person. That's a huge lifestyle interruption for that person as well. So it's just.
Well, that's why I always recommend to people, I say, if you're thinking about moving to a city for somebody, that can't be your only reason, because then you don't have a backup plan. You need to have another reason to be in a city besides the fact that you ostensibly love this person. Because if things go south with this now no longer long distance relationship, what do you have?
Well, exactly. I see that a lot in New York City, because obviously New York City is a destination city for a lot of people, especially for jobs and stuff like that. So I see that all the time. And it's tough. And I don't know. Let me move on to the next one because I got a handful of questions here.
Okay.
And I'm feeling a bit rushed because I'm still like on this 90-mile-an-hour thing where I was flying here. There's a lot of relationship questions that came up, so I'm just calling this relationships and other questions.
Relationship Q&A. Let's go.
Yeah, basically. So gifts for a new relationship, and at what point is a 3-week? So there's a lot. We need to make a lot of definitions here. Are you exclusive with someone? How long after you became exclusive? Because if you're dating someone, but it's not exclusive, and you've been dating for 3 or 4 weeks, and you're spending a lot of time at each other's places, well, let's say 2 times a week, what do you get that person? And do you get that person?
What's the occasion of the gift?
Holidays.
Oh, I don't know. If you try and scope out some of their interest and buy something that fits like one of their hobbies that you might not necessarily share. Maybe she's into art. You get her some art supplies. I don't know.
So not an art connoisseur, but an actual artist.
Or if she's just into art, then maybe you get her like a nice print. Like you figure out like one of the artists that she likes and get a nice lithograph painting or something.
Yeah, I don't think it can be too expensive. I also don't think it can be too intense because like that, there's a really good chance if you're getting something for someone that's a newer relationship, they didn't get anything for you. So,
well, I mean, if this is for the holidays or whatever, you know what, for buying a gift for a chick, you can never go wrong with like an inexpensive pair of diamond earrings as long as they wear jewelry.
how much did diamond earrings cost? Inexpensive.
I bought a pair of diamond earrings for my girlfriend at the time for like $40.
Are you sure they were diamond?
That's what the salesman told me. It was hilarious because I was like, I just need to get her a pair of diamond earrings. I don't know what else to get. Actually, it's better than that. So yeah, you met her. It was Haley. And I always joked that she had a lot of like cat-like behaviors to her. I always just called her like a cat in human clothing. And so the gifts that I got her that year, she always liked bubble wrap. Just like she would just pop it. So I bought her bubble wrap. I bought her like a little cat toy that had like a bell in it, and then I bought her diamond earrings. So like I got her bubble wrap, a cat toy, and shiny objects. But it didn't really matter how expensive they were. So or how nice they looked. It was the fact that I was getting her some diamond earrings. And I went to the salesman. He's like, "You want to know about these?" I'm like, "No, I just want to know what the price is." And you're like, "All right." Like, well, let me tell you a little bit more about this. Like, you're not listening to me, dude. If you keep on talking, you're going to lose the sale. I just want a pair of earrings.
I think he wanted to tell you that they weren't real diamond, but
I didn't want to hear that because then
that's fine. You bought some diamond earrings, then you got a really good deal, so that's good.
Yeah, you can get a pair of inexpensive diamond earrings for under $50.
You could also do something like, I think a nice early dating thing would be cook for that person. And if they like a certain wine or they like a certain liquor, that you buy that for them. The material gift, I think, is not to exceed $50 to $100, and it just can't be.
That's the range that I'm in.
It can't be anything that's like heavy, like, oh, you got me, like a photo album of us, or you got me like an iPhone type of, or an iPad. Like,
you know what another good idea is, and right now it's not applicable at all because you can't do it. But if they happen to have a type of music that they like or a particular artist that they like tickets to a concert for that particular artist.
I like that. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's good.
You get like 2 tickets. That way it's a you and me thing, but it's your artist, not mine. So it's still mostly for you, but I get to come along and enjoy it with you.
I was once invited to, so this is early on in dating somebody, and she had purchased a different dude tickets to a Black Keys concert, and she happened to mention that she had these tickets, and this was pretty early on, so I'm big on just kind of being open and honest. And she's like, yeah, so I had these, I got them, it ended a while back, it was a gesture in advance. And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to go to the Black Keys. I love the Black Keys. It was a great concert. It was actually a really badass concert. I think it was in Madison Square Garden, so that's cool. Andreas is here watching. He said definitely an experience over something material. And I think that's, if you're going with an experience, given it's not a $250 pair of tickets somewhere, it's a $50, $60, $80 pair of tickets, not so bad.
You know what another good one is? This one, I don't know how COVID's affected it, but like skydiving is fun together.
That's cool. That's cool. I think the biggest thing though is you got to walk the line of not making the other person uncomfortable if they haven't bought you something in reciprocity. And I don't think they need to. And I don't think that you should have any expectation that they will. I always tell everybody that I date that they need to buy me something. So that way there's no ambiguity.
No, I tell everybody that I date not to buy me anything.
That was a joke. All right. So there's so many dating questions.
Keep going.
So wild. Dating a colleague. So this is so last one again. We got a few from Daisy's. And Daisy said also gifts for new relationship, meeting a person who lives distantly. Next question was dating a colleague. And
got to be careful.
I think there's lots of there's a little refill here. Lots of questions when it comes to dating a colleague. I don't think dating or PDA has any place in the office. I have a bit of an issue going on with this in my office, and I haven't had an opportunity to call it out in front of the two parties without enough people being around. Like, I don't want anybody around, ideally. I want to walk in and catch something and be like, look, motherfuckers, that doesn't happen here. It does, like... Well,
there's a difference between people dating in the office and not really acting on anything in the office versus, like, I don't think there's an issue there. If like they can be professional with each other while they're in the office, and then whatever they do outside of work is their own business.
Yes, I agree. I don't think there's any conversation about it. I think you should be able to work with people and them not have any idea about that personal aspect of you. I've always kept it on a actually, that's not true, but it deserves to be on a private note. I'm close friends with a lot of people that I work with, so I guess that's where some lines get crossed. So people have been aware of that. But really, I would say there's a lot of people out there, and if you can avoid it, like, you should. And if it happens to happen because you're not in control, you hit it off with somebody, it doesn't need to take. There should be no remnants of it in the office.
Yeah, the goal should be that nobody in the office knows.
Yeah, exactly. Or suspects it. Like, and I just think that's how it should be.
Yeah, so I would say, like, if you are on basically the same employment level, because, like, if you're a manager and they're not, that's a problem because there's an imbalance of power. But if, like, you're both basically at the same employment level or whatever, and nobody knows about it in the office, and you keep work at work, basically.
Sure. It just, like, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I think I would work actively to avoid it. And, if things happen, they happen. And, that's human nature. Like, you can't control it. I don't have, in our office, I don't have any policies that forbid it. But it just should be avoided.
You should probably have policies, like, for your senior agents versus, like, junior agents that are on their team.
Well, sure. But it's tough. All right,
next question.
I gotta change the subject before I get any deeper. All right, let's see. All right, let's talk about, this was dating a colleague. Let's talk about another workplace thing, not relationship. What to buy your boss. So, being the boss, I like it when people buy the boss things. But I don't think you need to buy your boss anything. And it's a nice gesture. I always was happy when somebody brought me a bottle of something, or if people, chipped in and got a bottle of something. I've gotten different bottles of wine, different bottles of liquor, and ties, and I think that's very reasonable. At one point, somebody gave me a pack of undershirts, which I thought was very odd. And then I guess that they had found out that I was complaining about always running out of undershirts. So there was a bit of kind of tongue in cheek with that. But I think a tie is reasonable, and I think a bottle of something is reasonable. Anything else that
you got to know your boss. And I would say if you don't know your boss very well, don't buy them a gift. You need to have some kind of ideas, things that they like. So, like, for example, in my office, if I wanted to buy one of the partners a gift, like the last thing that I would buy any of them would be ties. One, because I know they probably have a ton of them. And two, we don't wear ties in the office. So I've seen each one of the partners, all like each 3 or 4 partners, I've probably seen each one of them wear a tie once or twice each.
Yeah,
So in 2.5 years, maybe 8 times.
I always like a nice tie. But just for the record, this question came from Cabby Sue. What to buy the boss?
I would say, like, I always think I'm a huge fan of fountain pens. So that's kind of a default gift that I give to everybody, because practically everybody has to write things down from time to time. So why not do it with something nice? Same thing on the writing side is like a nice notebook of like high quality paper. Because again, writing things down a lot.
Yeah. A nice pen, not a bad one. But so James, you can get away with not a. How much was that pen you said the other day?
Which one?
You mentioned one. I can't remember the name. We put it in a gift.
Well, so the Pilot Metropolitan is the one that I recommend. You can get that for about $20.
Okay, so here's my advice: a nice shit. I can't think of it. What type of pen is it? Sorry.
Fountain pen.
A nice fountain pen for $20. Nice, classy. A ballpoint pen for $20. Not classy. Ballpoint pen for $100 plus. Classy, but then you're probably overspending for the boss. But I don't think you should. If you give somebody a $20 ballpoint pen, not cool. But I think so. Fountain pen, that's cool because probably they don't have it. A bottle of wine or a bottle of liquor, that's cool.
As long as you know that they drink. If they're not a drinker, then don't buy them that.
Again, you have to have some insight. You can't be. A tie, I think, is good.
A book on management.
If you're a dick, like Management for Dummies or something would be funny, and it would also be it would be tongue in cheek funny because they could put it behind their desk, like on a bookshelf. That'd be kind of funny too. Somebody just asked what field I'm in. Oh, I missed this. Shit, I did it last time too. We are with James, the Bosnian Boswell, accountant extraordinaire, professional bartender, professional referee, and part-time philosopher.
Yeah.
So that's James. I'm a real estate agent in Manhattan. James is in Charleston, South Carolina. So let's see. Let's hit the next question here. What I have Widow Warrior, and I know Widow Warrior that you're watching this live, so maybe you can elaborate on this because I just took some notes quick today. Is sex easier and love harder? Oh, okay. So she was asking is now that she's saying the premise was sex is easier in 2020 and love is harder in 2020. Is that true? And
well, we need to define our terms a little bit here.
My thinking is really, and I don't know because I'm not young enough to. Also, no, who's comparing this to me? I don't think that has changed because I'm no longer 22 or 18 having these apps. And the person who is now 22 or 18, they're not comparing this to 2005.
Yeah, they don't know what the world was like before Tinder and the Bumble and whatnot.
So even when, and I've in the past, not obviously currently, but tried dating apps and things like that. And I didn't find that easy at all. So I don't necessarily think it's easier and love is harder. I think obviously, like if you're a hot girl, it's probably always easy.
For
And
sex, sure.
if you're a hot guy, it's probably no more easy than it's ever been because you still have to navigate that social,
So
kind of.
I don't remember which dating site it did. I think it was either OkCupid or Match.com. They did an experiment where they took 4 pictures of a guy and 4 pictures of a girl, of like different guys and girls. So
Mhm.
they had like ugly looking dude, below average dude, really good looking dude. And then exact same thing. Ugly chick, below average chick, super hot chick, right?
Mhm.
And so they put the photos up for each one of these. I had 8 profiles. And the profile description for each one of them, all 8, was the exact same text.
Yeah.
Right? And so then they went out and they put them up and saw how many matches or how much interest, how many messages each one got. So unsurprisingly, the hot chick blew everybody else out of the water, right?
Mhm.
And the thing that I tell everybody, and this is the real finding for me, is that the hot dude, how did he do in comparison to the chicks? So you've got
I'm guessing he did similar to the below average or the ugly girl, and then obviously the scale of the men fell in place behind him.
so the dude who was a 9.5 scored about, all right, so if we say like you have like a 2, a 5, a 7, and a 9.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the dude who was a 9.5 scored somewhere between the 5 and the 7 of the chicks.
Okay, so that would have been, and that's, I don't think that has changed in apps or in real life. I don't think, but
No.
again, now we're talking about sex. So now we have to talk about love. And I think love, in the sense that most people know it, which is that kind of infatuation period, I don't think that's changed much at all. I still think that exists for your 2 weeks to your 3 months to your 6 months to your 12 months. I don't think that's changed. But I think because now in 2020, people believe that they have so many more options, that extended, that deep, that true, real, enduring love doesn't exist the way it used to. And I think that's because people,
Because inherent in that
yeah,
type
yeah,
of
well,
love
I
is
think that's
some
what,
kind of, there's compromise in that.
uh,
It's a realistic view of the other person where you realize they're not perfect.
oh, we got a female request to be in here talking about dating apps. I'm going to bring her in. Michelle,
Let's
I
do it.
think this is Michelle that was on here before, except we're not on TikTok now. Michelle, hang tight. We're on Instagram, so I'm going to try to
Is
bring
this
this
the
in.
Michelle from South Africa?
I think so. So I'm trusting this is Michelle we talked to last time. I love bringing you guys in. James, unfortunately, won't be able to see, and the guys on TikTok, you guys won't be able to see either. Hang tight, guys. Let's see if I can. She said, yeah, Michelle, South Africa. Go live with Michelle. Right, waiting for her to connect. And we'll get a little female. She declined. All right, even though she's telling me she wants to join, so she'll have to
Oh,
try
that's
again.
unfortunate.
But again, is sex easier and is love harder in 2020? But I think okay, it's not the Michelle from South. Well, thank you, Michelle. Michelle from Texas. We need the female perspective on this. So if you want to jump in real quick, um, you're welcome to. But no, please, Michelle from Texas, you're welcome to join. But what I'm thinking is that people cut a lot quicker in relationships now than they used to because they believe they have so many options, which options are easier and faster. But it depends on what your goals are. If your goals are just to get laid and fuck somebody's life up over the course of 8 months, like that's still out there, and you can do it a lot more and faster than you could before. But I think that shorter term love is just as much there. I think your long term is not. So let's hit another question, and that question came from the Widow Warrior, which she's commenting now. Morals and values have changed. Yeah, to a degree, I think they have. But I don't know. I think I don't think sex is that much easier, and I don't think love is that much harder. But I think the long-term relationships are definitely, we don't need relationships as much as we used to now. And I think that's evident in places, especially Asian places like Japan, where birth rates are rapidly declining and people are losing social skills big time, which we did a whole podcast. If you check out the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Anchor, you can get back to the social skills one. Or if you check out our YouTube playlist,
It's not just Japan where birth rates are declining. In a lot of Western countries, including the United States, birth rates are declining. And I think COVID has actually made a lot of people who might have wanted a family reconsider.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, it's made a lot of people who have families who are in relationships want to reconsider. So
Yeah. So you got the people over the outside looking at it and be like, no thanks.
no thanks. All right. So let's see. Let's hit the next question. What to buy the boss? Is sex easier, love harder? Because I got some good ones. I got one or two good ones I'm really holding on.
Let's just do those then. Let's hit those because.
Okay. All right. How quickly do guys know if they want something serious or they just want a good time in a relationship? What are your thoughts on that? Because
it completely depends on what kind of energy I'm getting from the other party. How do the first couple dates go? What's our chemistry? And what's your intellect? Can I carry on a conversation with you?
God,
Can I enjoy my time with you when we're not? Can I enjoy my time with you when we have our clothes on? Because like we're gonna spend a lot more time with our clothes on than with our clothes off. So that eventually is going to have to win out. And do you get my sense of humor? Do you accept my personality quirks for what they are? And do you try and make me a better person without kind of like, I guess, for lack of a better term, nagging or insisting on it? Can you make me a better person without having to try?
Well, yeah, I have a friend in a relationship that I believe to be more physical and less fulfilling on the other ends of the spectrum. And I wonder, like, is that a relationship that's going to be long lasting?
My answer would be no.
But also, I think in his mind, his wires maybe cross a little bit too. So, yeah, but I think I won't entertain a relationship if I see like right off the bat that it doesn't have potential to have a future. Or I'll be pretty clear right off the bat that I don't see it having a future. It's
define future.
Long-term future, which is why
define that. What does long-term future mean?
Like a forever type future of a potential relationship, which is why I haven't been in that many serious relationships. If I see something on the near horizon, if that's not an oxymoron, but if I can see something on the horizon that seems like a red flag, it's usually not something I'll stick out or be down to stick out. But I think what might be happening now, because I think social skills below right now, is people might be like intentionally misleading people because they don't know how else to get laid. And I think that's kind of a sad reality. On both. I think
that might be my problem, is that I don't intentionally mislead, and at my age, like, so for those for our listeners who don't know, I am adamantly opposed to having kids, and most women in the age range that I would date are looking for that at some point in the future. And I've had plenty of first dates.
Pretty soon that won't be an issue for you, James. It won't be a possibility. Sorry.
But I've had plenty of first dates where that was brought up. I don't bring it up, but I'll answer honestly. Yeah. And where that was brought up, I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in never having kids. And they're just like, well, I wish you the best of luck, but you're not somebody that I can see myself having a future with, because that's something I want. And I say, all right, cool.
Yeah, well, but I think you got to be really honest up front. Also, you have to be honest with what you're looking for. Maybe not right off the bat, because you're just hanging out right off the bat. But I think you have to intend. This is so. I have I have decent number of young guys in my office, and every once in a while, like they'll come in and I had lunch with a guy the other day. We were talking mostly about work, but he was trying to date somebody. And I was like, dude, you just need to be honest right off the bat. Like if you're attracted to somebody, just tell them you're attracted to them and then gauge their reaction. And if they're not cool, just be like, all right, cool. Like no sweat on my back. Like, I'm happy spending time with you. But don't like just hang out with them for a little while and then like flip the switch 2 months later and be like, I want a relationship, because a girl's not going to see that coming. But I think here's my thinking is that a lot of guys are misleading to lead women to believe that they want a long-term relationship just to get laid. And I think women may mislead men to think that they're just there for a fun time and they actually want something serious. And I just think kind of honesty, like right up front, right off the bat, just being honest with somebody is going to help. Like, I don't know. And then once you've dated enough, like you can see stuff that might be, deep on the horizon for somebody else. Like you're going to see stuff and you're going to learn and you're going to learn what doesn't work for you in the long term. But how quickly do guys know? I think everybody's willing to make a decent compromise if you're smoking hot, and then that wears off. And then that wears off. Like if you're smoking hot, they'll be like, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to marry you. And then like 2 months.
I'd say it's like, how many strikes do you get? And how many innings do we play? If you're smoking hot, you get more outs than a chick that's not as hot as you are.
Yeah, I mean.
That's just the reality. I'm sorry.
There was a line somewhere, maybe it was Alfie or something, that I can't think of the line. But shit. Maybe I'll have to bring it back in another episode. I can't. Maybe I'll watch it tonight because it's a bit of a holiday movie.
It's got some good lines in it too.
I know it does.
But yeah, basically, if you're smoking hot, you're gonna get more strikes and more innings to play than someone who's not.
Yeah,
it's not fair, but it's the reality. But long term, your hotness is not going to carry the day, and you need. And in terms of how quickly does a guy know, I would say at the most 4 to 6 weeks if you hang out regularly.
It's I try my best to keep distant with my sister in any relationship that she's in. But from time to time, I'll drop relationship advice. And because I'm so like uninvolved and not that I don't care about her and her relationships, but honestly, it's not my place. So for me, I'm just a friend of hers in that sense that doesn't want all the details. That's just going to kind of look at the high line, tip of the iceberg stuff and be like, no, that's not going to work. Or like, my sister asked me, a long time ago, maybe she didn't ask me, maybe I just told her, like, how many dates should you go on with somebody before you sleep with them? And I'm like, the girl should hold out as long as possible. The guy should move forward as quickly as possible to feel each other out. Like, you want to make sure the guy's not a dick and you want to hold out, like my number was 6 dates. And then I'm like, from the guy's perspective, the guy should try from date 1. That's that. That was my advice to her on that. And
I'm going to disagree on both points.
Okay, what's your disagreement on that?
I don't think that it's necessarily the best idea from a guy's perspective to just doggedly pursue one thing.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Just hold on. And I want to hear the rest of what you're saying. I don't mean to interrupt, but I think the guy should be more of the aggressor. Obviously, if he gets turned down, he gets turned down. But I think the guy should be more the aggressor because that's traditional gender rules. And there's nothing wrong with following traditional gender rules. And that the woman should hold off. But sorry, go ahead. I don't think the guy.
I don't think that it should be the guy's goal to get laid. It should be, is this something that I actually want? And when you decide that that's something that you want, then you explore that territory, and it either works for you or it doesn't. But there's been plenty of times where I've been on dates with women where I'm like, I don't really want to have sex with this person tonight. Maybe in the future I'll figure out where I fall on them at some point, but not on the first date
I
because
think a guy should be trying to find out if somebody is a good person or a slut. Not that there's anything wrong with being either one of those things, but I think you want to. I don't know. I've always wanted to like push it a little bit, but I've also been super respectful. If somebody's like, "I'm not going to sleep with you," like that's fine. Um, but
and I also don't think that a chick should arbitrarily decide not to have sex with somebody simply because that there's some set number that they need to wait for. Like if it's something that you want and it's something that you think is a good idea, go for it. If you have misgivings, if you have some reason to think maybe I should wait, then wait.
just for the record, comments are saying that you're hitting this nail right on the head. Everybody is on your side on this one.
Ah, there we go.
Like, yes, yes, yes. So you're winning this one. Although somebody did say, I love traditional gender roles, which if you're non-traditional when it comes to gender roles, like kudos to you. Like, do you?
I'm against it. Why do we need to set certain expectations based on gender? Who cares? Do what it makes the most sense at the time, regardless of whether you've got a dick or a vagina.
Cool, perfect. But guess what? I like a traditional female gender role as the opposing sex, and it's within my right to weed out what I don't like. So
I'm not telling you that you shouldn't like what you like.
No,
what I'm saying is like
you don't have.
it's
Nobody has to do their own thing. I'm saying I'm looking for what I like, and I'm weeding out the other. So I'm trying to see if somebody sleeps with me on the first date, then I'm like, okay, well, this is somebody who probably does this a lot, and I don't know necessarily, and maybe it is. I don't know necessarily that's something that I'm going for.
Yeah, but again,
the person also. It depends on the person, depends on the circumstances. I'm just trying to figure things out, and I'm pushing things to the boundary to figure out where the boundary is. Just like when I get a new car and I drive it as hard as I can because I want to see where the tires are gonna skid off the road, because I don't want to be doing 70 around an on ramp or an off ramp and lose it then. I want to know right off the bat what are the boundaries and figure out if it's for me, because I've been in great cars, just like the 911, where you'd be surprised how aggressively it can take turns, and then you'd be surprised where it takes turns and it loses it. And is it the car for me? I love the car, but does it not fulfill certain aspects of where I want a car to fulfill? Sure, but I wanted to learn that early on and say, is this a car that I want to commit to and drive?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to stop you for a second because you're not answering the question. You're answering the question for you.
Yes.
But the thing is, this is a question that needs to be applicable to other people. You can't just say, this is what I like to do. You have to say, what's an approach that'll work for more people than just me? And that's why the response that I have is, like, you don't necessarily, like, if you're not big on the whole gender roles thing and you think that a lot of this is socially constructed stuff is bullshit, then don't buy into it and do your own thing. And don't have some arbitrary rule as to how many dates you have to wait to hook up with somebody. Be aware of the implications of both sides of the decision, where if you're waiting too long or you're waiting not long enough, how that might be interpreted. But at the end of the day, you have to judge where you fall on somebody and whether you're okay with the consequences one way or the other. And you're reading comments, and what are they saying?
Yeah, I am catching it. I'm listening to you, but I'm also reading the comments. And basically, the last three comments that came through, I liked. Let's see. Pixie Girl said, it depends on what you're looking for, a relationship or a hookup, but back to honesty. And I think, again, that is important. And that's my one, like, hold steady there. Next one said, I think you're both way overthinking, and that's when you saw me smile. We're both overthinking relationship for long term. And then the next comment was, I forgot it. No, I lost it. If a guy really likes a girl and respects her, he's not going to sleep with her on the first date. But I think ultimately, if you really like that person, you're willing to make it's all right. Every instance is different. Every person's different. But I think if you're super honest and you're upfront, you're winning. That's all. That's
All
all.
right, next question.
And how soon or how late somebody sleeps with you has never been a make or break for me. And it shouldn't be for you, but it is something that I think about consciously in a relationship. All right, so let's see. Okay. Quickly buy during the pandemic. So do I want to do real estate? I want to go back to dating, or do I want to talk about society? Dating, society, or real estate? Because those are the three questions we have left, and I want to hit all of them.
Let's finish off dating, and then we'll change since we're already in the dating mindset.
I don't want to. I like the question. All right.
Well, then pick the question you like. Why are you even asking me then?
I know it's not. I tried to. Yeah. All right. I'm a ball hog here. All right. Men and women pay gap. I just want to touch on it. Jay Cruz said, I think you guys should make a podcast about the men-women pay gap. And it hit me this week or last week, the end of last week. The Women's Soccer League is complaining that they don't get paid as much money as men.
And what are their revenues?
That's what I said. That was my first question. If a men's soccer game makes 1.2 million per game and a women's game makes 450,000, how do you pay them the same amount of money? And I totally think I know that it's inadvertent, the pay gap. Maybe to a degree it's intentional.
I want to do a topic. I want to do a podcast where we talk about this entirely because it merits a full hour of discussion. I want to do some research on it because I've got some opinions on it that I would rather have researched than just spouting off.
Yeah, well, and that's my point. I think it definitely deserves, and
it's a great topic.
Jay Cruz, right? Because I obviously believe in equal pay, 100%.
Well, equal pay for equal work.
Equal pay for equal work, but it's the same amount of work to kick the ball down the field. The issue is the revenue and the viewership and who's evaluating the work. Not the so it gets complex. And I believe in equal pay. I believe in total equality. I don't necessarily believe that we should have a boxing match between a man and a woman. I also don't believe we should have a boxing match between somebody who's 280 pounds and somebody who's $170. But it's something to be dissected, and shoot me for my opinion on it. But we definitely equal.
Let's make that a full podcast because I think there's a lot there.
All right, Jay Cruz, you got us on a whole podcast, so we're going to do some research. We'll get back to you next week or at some point in the future. So I think that was my society. I'm going to hit real estate real quick. Buying during a pandemic. Is it a good idea to buy during a pandemic? For someone who just left New York City and bought in the suburbs, it's not a good time to buy because there's low inventory. So there's a seller's market in the suburbs.
Very much so.
And if you're buying in a city, now is the time to buy because right now there's so many sales listings and everybody's leaving. So the demand is low, the supply is high, prices are coming down. It's definitely a buyer's market in urban areas, and it's a seller's market in suburban and rural areas. So you have to decide what your goal is, and that's the answer to you. James, any input on that, or I imagine you're on the same page?
Pretty much. I'd question how much of a buyer's market it is in cities, but you would know better than I do. I think it also depends greatly on your location, and I'm not saying like urban versus suburban. I'm saying what city are you in, because right now there are some cities that are blowing up and there are other cities that are emptying out. So it all depends on what location, where you're looking to buy. But I would say in general right now that although rents and rental income has dropped considerably during the pandemic, we have not seen a corresponding decrease in price in actual real estate. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason for that is all these people that have money need to put it somewhere. And so if they don't want to put it in the stock market, the next best place to put it is real estate. So the demand for real estate has stayed the same or increased. And it's not because of demand for use so much as it is demand for a safe harbor for assets. So I'm not sure that buying right now is the best time, and we might see a correction in the real estate market. My guess is that we'll see a correction in the real estate market, but it won't be for a couple years. And the reason for that is right now, interest rates are stupid low, which is going to incentivize buying, and people can get approved for a higher rate, for a higher loan amount than they would have been able to 5 years ago because the interest is so much lower.
Mm-hmm.
So you're also seeing that pump up demand because you've got more availability of capital. And so eventually interest rates are going to have to tick back up. And if the longer term effects of this pandemic are going to be that there's going to be certain sectors of the economy and employment that take a very long time to recover, then you're going to have a number of people in those industries that are either underemployed or unemployable.
Yeah.
Because they just have skills that are no longer in demand because the economy has shifted, and they're still going to be holding mortgage notes that they can't pay.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see something similar to the 2008-2009 mortgage crisis and then just recession entirely, but it's going to play out over a longer period of time. And I don't think it's going to be as severe, but it's going to take longer to materialize. And you will see a correction in real estate prices as long as interest rates tick back up. As long as interest rates are low, that's going to artificially inflate demand for real estate.
Yeah, fair enough. And and again, something we can hit more because I have one more, but I had a lot of questions. And I mean, again, as the viewers are saying in the comments, you are hitting the nail right in the head. All right, last question. I like this one. Dating age gap from Cheryl Pollock. And buying during a pandemic from Lilith Fair. So Cheryl Pollock asks, dating age gap. What's an acceptable dating age gap? I know the multiplier. I believe in the multiplier.
Divide by 2, add 7.
That's it.
Or divide by 7 and add 2.
I live in an area in which pop culture and Californication of Texas is affecting prices. Lilith. Oh, actually, that was your question. Lilith, buying during a pandemic. Lilith, Texas is screwed right now with the Californians. Everybody in California and New York City are not the places to live right now.
No, but also buying. If you ever wanted to move to California or New York, your window of opportunity is starting to open.
Yeah, this is the time to move to California. Yeah, just like James said. But if you're in the Texas area, everybody in California wants to move to Texas for the same reason. I'm in Jersey now, fresh out of Manhattan. Manhattan is super regulated, and we'll get back to this dating age gap in a second. But Manhattan is super regulated, super liberal, and I'm pretty liberal, but not to the point where like I had to step over someone laying in the stairs this morning on my they were like all drugged out. It was
again with the homeless people.
9:15 in the morning, and then yesterday there were like a bunch of syringes dumped down the fucking stairs. So in the subway, like it's just a fucking mess. And you know,
So you're saying there's cheap needles?
I was thinking like that's great. Like people find cigarettes on the ground, they half smoking cigarettes. You find a fucking syringe on the ground, used or not, like you're sticking that shit in your body.
Oh, there's still some drugs in there.
But yeah, the voter base of these uber liberal people are people that don't make any money and they live up to city policies. And the people that are transient or pied a terre, whatever it is, they're not your big voting base. And the problem is places like LA, San Francisco, New York City, Manhattan, you need rich people for those places to exist. The rich people inject the money with the city with money, the cities with money, and the rest of it use that money. But you can't only cater to the small end of the funnel. You have to cater to the large end of the funnel as well, and everything really in between. But at least at the small end and the large end.
Can I give you an audiobook that you should listen to?
Which is what?
That'll address kind of the points that you made right now. So it's a regular book too, but you can find the audiobook. I think you can just find it on YouTube and you can listen to it for free. The name of the book is The Dictator's Handbook.
Okay,
And
I've heard of this. Yeah.
just either read it or listen to it, because the author's insights on how politics works is just refreshing.
All right. So I don't want to get too much into this. I want to get back into the dating age yet, because we just hit the hour mark. I want to talk a little bit more about the dating age gap, and I think we need 2-3 minutes on it. I like to divide by 2 and you add 7. Somebody just said something about 10 years and then 6 years or something. Oh, 10 years older or 3 to 4 years younger, but that doesn't work. It's 10 years older or 10 years younger, because it's just.
I think
But if
generally,
you're 60 years old, can you date somebody that's 37? I think so. I don't think 37 is a baby. You're like, oh, that's huge. 37 is somebody that's vibrant and young. But yeah, 60 is still pretty vital there. Then you take somebody who's 65, that's 32 and a half, plus that's 40 years old is basically.
yeah.
If you're 40, it's okay to date somebody that's 60. If you were 30, you can date somebody that's 22.
Yeah.
Let me think about that.
I think at least in my own personal life, when I was in my late 20s or whatever, my rule was you have to be legal to drink. If you're not legal to drink, we can't talk.
I briefly at 33, 22. How does that math out?
Not favorably.
No, and it was a tough, and it didn't last. So, I think if you're testing the extremes of that, my thinking was always, especially if you're on the young, if you're the older person dating down, and it's on the younger end of the kind of spectrum, we'll say like 18 plus, because at 18 you're what, 25? What's the at 18 you'd be 7, so 11. You'd be what? 22, right? If you're
22 to 18 matches up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you're from the lower end, if you're dating somebody who's on the lower end of the math there, you technically have more experience. Well, obviously more experience. Hopefully you have more experience. But you technically also have the upper hand, because you have the experience, because you're older, you have more life skills. So my thinking is just like, if you're dating down, that person, if the relationship ends, needs to end in a better place than when they started. Because you can't you can't date down and like kind of fuck over that person, is my thinking on it. And
I don't think that's realistic to achieve, though. That's too chivalrous.
Well, but that's my point. Is I think if you're not being that chivalrous, then you're
Yeah, but you can have that as the goal, but like obviously don't go out with the intent of screwing somebody up.
But don't be a dick bag. But don't be a dick bag, I think is.
Yeah, but you can screw somebody. You can screw somebody up without being a dick bag and without intending to do so. It just happens sometimes.
Then this just means you're dumb. So then don't date that person. But that's my advice: is don't leave that person in a worse place. And if you do,
how do you know that you're doing that until it's too late?
That's on you. And if you're not aware that person could potentially end up in a worse place, that's still on you. And that's what makes you the dick bag.
How is this an enforceable standard?
It's not. It's my perspective, and I'm not enforcing it. I'm not out there in my fucking what did I have the other day? Corona or something. They're just selling on the desk. I'm not out there with my fucking sledgehammer beating people Thorcell over the head. But I think
the divide by 2 and add 7 is a good guideline, but you should always just read it and say, like, how mature is this person in relation to me? What kind of interchange do we have? And kind of test the boundaries of their ability to handle things. And I'm not talking about sexually. I'm talking about life situations, and see how do they handle stress and adversity, and how does that match up with your expectations of somebody at that age? And does that fit with how you are?
Yeah. But I think if you're not aware of that person's going to be in a worse place, like you're not really in tune with things. And I think that's on you. And I think if you're not in tune with things, uh, yeah, that's also on you. Like that's just shitty. I'm sorry. I don't know if you're looking something up or you're frozen.
No.
And so, but I'm being told in the comments I'm losing heart, which is fine. But I think all my platform for the most part across the board was honesty and intuition. So, but I don't know. What are you looking up over there?
Oh, there was something. Don't ask. It was a math thing.
All right. Well, fair enough. All right. Anything else? Any other questions that you guys want to ask? Who's watching live? I'd love to hit like 2 more questions if we can. We hit the hour mark, so that means I'm winding down. I'm not pouring another drink. I actually managed not to kill a bottle of wine, which is not bad on my part. I'm sure after the podcast, I probably will. Missy Highland added a good holiday gift would be a home cooked meal and to watch hockey on TV. Interesting. So, and then we got something from S. Rivas. People need to decide if they're seeking long-term or short-term, not to drag.
Back to honesty.
Back to honesty, not to drag people into a falsehood. Which, yeah, exactly. But here's the thing on honesty. Like we can talk about honesty all day long, but when you're sitting across the table at Taco Bell on your third date, looking at
that's a great third date location.
If you can find a dine-in Taco Bell during coronavirus, looking at somebody.
Let me just show you. This is how seriously I take this relationship right now. Third date, we're gonna step it up. We're gonna go to Taco Bell.
Well, 1986, during whenever they made Demolition Man, they believed that all restaurants in the future would be called Taco Bell because they would monopolize restaurants. But if you're across the table from somebody, looking them in the eye and telling them what you really want, or even telling them you think they're pretty, is really tough. And if you're like, no, it's not that tough. I promise you, it's really tough for a lot of people. That's.
It's easier after a couple drinks.
I agree. Which is why we're featured here on SipTalk. So, and of course. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap. So I missed a few comments and questions there, but I'm going to wrap. James and I are always here for relationship questions. We're always here for accounting and tax advice. Because
that's what the people want to hear about.
That's James' forte. I'm always here for your real estate advice, for your personal advice. And, but that's what we're here for, and we like being in touch with the personal aspects of life. And somebody just asked, "What's a deal breaker for you?" I'm gonna wrap on the deal breaker. That's tough. My deal breakers have changed big time. When I was younger, I never thought I would be with a smoker. Smoking doesn't bother me anymore. Kids. The kids thing, doesn't bother me anymore. What's a good deal breaker? I think good.
I got a few.
I think if you're like a solid, you're like a good solid person, like you can get away with a lot of deal breakers. I feel like I've always been the deal breaker in a relationship. So
there you go. Yeah, I'm sure I'm guilty of that as well in my relationships.
Yeah.
But in terms of, at this point, if I'm looking for somebody that I'm going to date. My deal breakers it's a short list, but there's like 2 or 3 that I can't get around. One is like, if you're fat, I'm not interested. 2 is if you have kids, I'm out. And 3 is if you can't carry on a reasonably intelligent conversation. I'm not looking for you to be a member of Mensa, but I don't want to have to explain basic concepts to you that you don't understand and then for you to continue not to understand them. You need to be able to engage intellectually at some level. Those are the three for me. I'm willing to negotiate on practically everything else.
I'll say the intelligence factor, but really it's more so the communication factor, because communication is key. And that's really led to the demise of any relationship where we didn't both speak the same language. Because the conversational aspect is very fulfilling for me. And that's it. And somebody else said, yeah, obviously lies, morals, and values are a deal breaker. All right, I'm going to wrap on that. I said I wasn't going to pour another glass of wine. I did. I just ran through the door. Got some deliveries here I got to take care of, and but that's that. So,
all right, yeah, let's do some research, and we'll talk about as two dudes, we'll talk about how the pay gap has affected us.
all right, if you want to actually the gender wage pay gap. If you're female or a lady or a girl, or in between, we would love to hear your comments. Shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, fill us in. We want your opinion, we want your feedback on the gender wage gap. I think that's really big, and I would love to have some additional external points of view on it outside of James and mine. Obviously, we're both dudes. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Definitely subscribe if you haven't. Like, if you're watching us and we're not live, actually, if you're watching us live, just go to YouTube and search us out. You're going to find us. Go to your podcast platform. If you don't listen to podcasts, like, what the hell else do you do on your commute? You listen to Taylor Swift? You listen to, like, regular radio?
If I'm driving the Miata, I listen to Air.
Yeah, fair enough. But you should listen to you're in the gym. What are you listening to? You need something fulfilling. You need to listen to us.
Put on SipTalk.
You need to listen to our goofy points of view. I actually, for the first time ever, because now I got this extended commute, for the first time ever, I actually, because I edit SipTalk, but that's editing, and that's intensive. I listen to us on SipTalk. I hate the sound of my voice. I think everybody does. But, we get some good points of view. And I think that's, our points of view, we care a lot about what you guys think. So subscribe and share your opinion. Thank you all for joining. I'm gonna close this out. James, until next time, cheers to you all.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Well, that was a good one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being there for us. And again, if we missed any questions that you'd like to hear about, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you'd like to hear. All right, see ya.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.